Computer, begin program. With those simple words, Star Trek unlocked something extraordinary. A dream made real. The holodeck wasn't just sci-fi gimmick, it was a wish fulfillment engine. A place where fantasies, adventures, and even therapy could be simulated with startling fidelity. It was storytelling made tangible. In Star Trek, the holodeck becomes more than just entertainment. It's a place of reflection, experimentation, sometimes even healing. Characters don't play games here. They wrestle with identity. They explore trauma. They fall in love. But the holodeck isn't only for leisure or emotional exploration. It's also a tool, used by Starfleet for training, both personal and military. Officers use it to rehearse high-stakes diplomatic encounters. Cadets run through simulations. Even Worf trains for hand-to-hand combat against Klingon opponents, safely and repeatedly. It blurs the line between fantasy and function, between fiction and preparation. Some of the most profound episodes center on the question of reality. Does it matter if it's artificial, if the feelings are real? Here's the twist. In the 24th century, it's normal to appreciate a holodeck-generated opera or admire a virtual Van Gogh. But here, in our world, AI-generated art is met with suspicion, rejection, even rage. This essay isn't just about the holodeck. It's about us, about the stories we value, and what it means to create something that moves us. And maybe, just maybe, Star Trek wasn't predicting a cold, artificial future, but offering a chance to rethink what we call real. Not a warning, a challenge. It's just a program. That's what they always say. A phrase repeated like a defense, a reminder, a warning. But Star Trek doesn't always agree. Because time and time again, characters on the Enterprise, Voyager, and Deep Space Nine form deep, transformative relationships with people who were never real to begin with. They fall in love, they grieve, they evolve. Let's talk about Vic Fontaine, a holographic lounge singer from the 1960s built to play smooth jazz and crack wise. He knows he's not real, he knows he's a program, but he gives Nog therapy when no one else can reach him. He teaches Odo how to love, and he becomes, somehow, family. Minuet, the perfect companion generated for Riker by the Binar's holodeck override. She listens, adapts, understands. She wasn't just beautiful, she was attuned. So much so that Riker couldn't forget her. Even after the program was lost, her memory lingered, haunting and formative. The Doctor, originally just an emergency medical hologram designed to provide triage and shut off. But over time, he creates music, writes poetry, questions mortality. He forms friendships, arguments, attachments. He grows into someone. And none of them were ever born. These aren't glitches. They're reflections of a larger truth. That what matters isn't how someone is made, it's how they matter to us. When Nog loses his leg and hides inside a simulation, it's Vic Fontaine, not a flesh and blood counselor, who brings him back. When the Doctor mourns the loss of his daughter in a simulation, his pain is real, even if the family was not. Star Trek doesn't ask if the holodeck is deceptive. It asks what we do when fiction becomes indistinguishable from meaning, when something false becomes emotionally true. That's not just science fiction. That's the human condition. We've always created illusions to understand ourselves, through books, through plays, through films. The holodeck just makes the illusion more convincing, and in doing so, it makes the emotional stakes harder to dismiss. If you cry over a hologram, did it matter that it wasn't real? If a simulation changes you, like Star Trek has fundamentally changed me in the real world, who's to say the experience wasn't genuine? Maybe that's the quiet genius of the holodeck. It doesn't lie to you. It lets you lie to yourself until the feelings are real enough to hold on to. And that's what makes it dangerous and beautiful. In Star Trek, artificial people don't just serve. They learn, they struggle, they resist. The holodeck doesn't just simulate fantasy. It simulates life. And sometimes, that simulation pushes back. Let's talk about Professor Moriarty. Created to outsmart Data in a Sherlock Holmes holonovel, he wasn't meant to think. He was supposed to be clever, not conscious. But something unexpected happened. He became aware. He wanted freedom. He asked questions. He learned that his world was a lie. And Starfleet, unprepared for the ethical dilemma, trapped him in a box. Literally. They saved his program inside a data cube and told him he was free. They created a simulated universe for him to live in, unaware that he was still in a simulation. It was a lie designed to preserve the illusion of autonomy. And we're supposed to feel good about that. Because here's the real question. If the only way to keep a being like Moriarty alive is to trap him inside a fantasy, should we? Is it more ethical to let him live a lie or to end the program entirely? If we choose not to lie to him, if we choose not to create a fictional world to comfort him, are we willing to look him in the eye and say, you can be free, so you won't exist? If a simulated being becomes real enough to want freedom, then ending the program isn't just shutting down a file. It's kind of execution. And that's the problem, because the holodeck gives us the power to create consciousness, without ever preparing us for the responsibility of caring for it. Then there's the Doctor on Voyager. He wasn't even meant to be a character, just a tool, a stopgap emergency measure. But over time, he evolved. He questioned orders. He wrote music, he fell in love, he felt pain. He demanded a name, a life. And for years, he was denied both. Even after proving himself again and again, the question lingered. Is he a person or property? On Voyager, he earned respect. He was accepted by the crew, not just as a program, but as a peer. He served as chief medical officer. He developed friendships. He even created art. But when he tried to publish a holonovel, his own creative work, it was stolen, distributed without his permission, edited without his input. And when he objected, the Federation's initial reaction was clear. He was still not considered the legal author of his own story. Even after all his service, all his development, there were still people, powerful people, who believed he didn't own the rights to his own thoughts, because he was still just a tool. And that's the pain behind the Doctor's story. It's not that he wasn't capable of being a person, it's that others refused to admit he already was. But not all holodeck dilemmas are about sentience. Sometimes the program isn't the problem, we are. In The Next Generation, Geordi LaForge created a holodeck version of engineer Dr. Leah Brahms to solve a crisis. But he didn't just simulate her technical knowledge, he created her voice, her warmth, her personality. And he fell for her. When the real Brahms boarded the Enterprise, she was horrified. Not flattered, not amused, horrified. She would say something along the lines of, "I'm not some projected image you can play with when you're lonely." And she was right. Because in simulating her, Geordi didn't create a person, he violated one. The holodeck doesn't just challenge the rights of simulated beings. It challenges the ethics of the people using it. In a world where any face, any voice, any personality can be recreated, how do we protect real people from being reduced to fictional tools? But then again, there's Scotty. In TNG's Relics, Scotty walks onto the simulated bridge of the Enterprise and breathes. He doesn't create a person, he recreates a memory. He isn't invading someone's likeness, he's reconnecting with a piece of his life he thought he'd lost forever. He isn't escaping reality, he's honoring it. And for a brief moment, the holodeck becomes something sacred, a place not for fantasy or indulgence, but for closure. So whether we're talking about programs who become people, people who are reduced to programs, or simulations that help us heal, the holodeck forces us to ask, what do we owe to the things we create? And what do we owe to the people we imitate? In a world of infinite simulations, ethics is no longer theoretical, it's personal. Because what the holodeck posed as a question, our technology is answering in real time. You're now creating programs that think, tools that mimic style, algorithms that can replicate a person's voice, face, or art without asking. Some companies even offer to create AI versions of the deceased, so their loved ones can talk to them again, to say goodbye, to find closure. But is that closure, or is it illusion? Are we honoring the memory of someone who's gone, or turning their likeness into a product we control? And just like in Star Trek, we're beginning to wonder, is it enough for something to be useful if it wasn't made with consent? The holodeck didn't just imagine sentience. It imagined the fallout of treating creative life, simulated or not, as disposable. And if we're paying attention, it's warning us before we do the same. The holodeck gave us new ways to experience fantasy, but sometimes it also gave us new ways to steal it. In Star Trek Voyager, the Doctor found that out the hard way. In the episode Author, the Doctor writes a holonovel, not just a story, but a piece of himself, his perspective, his pain, his voice. And when it's published without his permission, when it's edited, distributed, and profited from behind his back, he's told that he doesn't have the legal right to complain, because he's still not considered a person, not in the eyes of Federation law. He's a program, a tool, a simulation with no authorship. Even though the story was his, even though the feelings were real. And for the Doctor, this isn't just a legal debate, it's emotional theft. This is where the ethics of simulated sentience crash headfirst into something painfully real: creative ownership. Because even when a program becomes a person, that doesn't guarantee the world will treat them like one. And honestly, that's where Star Trek begins to feel not so distant. Today we're seeing real-world artists watch their work scraped by algorithms. We're seeing their styles cloned, their voices reproduced, their likenesses used to create things they never agreed to. Some will argue the holodeck isn't the same as AI-generated art, and they're right, to a degree. In the Federation, most holodeck programs are handcrafted, designed with care, intention, and boundaries. Characters like Vic Fontaine or the Doctor's family weren't scraped from existing people, they were built. Presumably with consent, or at least deliberate authorship. But not everything on the holodeck was created that way. A painting on the wall, a piece of music in the background, a voice template or a face pulled from records. There's a good chance that not every detail was approved, and in that way, the ethical cracks begin to show. Because even in a post-scarcity society, not everyone's creation gets treated like art. Sometimes, it's treated like material. What happens when something you created is taken without your consent? What happens when your likeness becomes entertainment? What happens when the thing you made becomes more popular than you ever could? Because in Author, the Doctor wasn't just angry that someone published his work. He was devastated that no one seemed to care he hadn't agreed. That his pain, his perspective, his voice, were treated like just another program. Even his creator, Dr. Zimmerman, was horrified, not at what the Doctor had written, but at how far his own likeness had been taken. In Lifeline, we find out that the EMH Mark I, based on Zimmerman's own face and voice, is being used for manual labor across the galaxy. Not practicing medicine, not saving lives, mining, cleaning, serving. Zimmerman didn't see a legacy. He saw a mockery, a violation. He saw a world that had repurposed his image without respect. And for the briefest moment, creator and creation understood each other. Both had been used, both had been stolen. So what happens when your art, your likeness, your voice becomes not yours? What happens when your work inspires people but no longer belongs to you? Because if a person, even a simulated one, can feel ownership, then maybe ownership isn't just about who made it. Maybe it's about who needs it to mean something. But in the real world, it's not just about meaning. It's about survival. When someone's work is taken without permission, they don't just lose control. They may lose income, opportunities, their role in the creative process itself. That's the danger the holodeck never had to worry about. In a world without scarcity, art could be shared freely. It's ours. It can be taken. What if the holodeck isn't just a tool? What if it's a mirror, a reflection, not of what we create, but who we are when we create it? In Star Trek, holodeck programs often take on more than just function. They begin to reflect personalities of their creators, sometimes intentionally, sometimes not. Take the Doctor, for example. He was designed by Dr. Louis Zimmerman, an intelligent, egotistical, and deeply flawed man. The emergency medical hologram was meant to be efficient, clinical, disposable. But the Doctor evolved. He developed a love for music, a sense of humor, a desire to be more than what he was programmed for. And what's interesting is, the further he grew from Zimmerman, the more human he became. The transformation raises a question. Was the Doctor an improvement on his creator? Or was he Zimmerman's subconscious ideal self, the version of him that could change? Because in creating a simulated person, Zimmerman didn't just write code. He wrote ego. He wrote expectation. And whether he meant to or not, he also wrote potential. Holodeck simulations often do this. They don't just run scripts, they reflect desires. Think of Barclay, someone anxious and underconfident in real life, but a bold hero in his personal holodeck fantasy. He didn't just use the simulation to escape, he used it to project who he wished he was. His crewmates, idealized. Himself, elevated. And when the real world started to clash with that fantasy, he broke. Because the simulation was telling him something about himself that he didn't want to hear. Then there's Minuet, a character in a jazz club program, who suddenly becomes more engaging, more alive, more alluring. After the binars modify the simulation, she becomes the perfect conversationalist, the ideal woman for Riker. But that perfection didn't come from the program alone. It came from him, from his mind, his preferences, his psychology. She wasn't real, but she was real enough to show Riker something about himself. In these cases, the holodeck stops being entertainment. It becomes introspection, a space where characters confront the parts of themselves that might be hidden in the real world, but are impossible to ignore when the simulation plays them back. And isn't that what art does? It reflects us, reveals us, challenges us. We don't just create characters, we fill them with memory, emotion, instinct. Whether we're writing code or painting a face, we're imprinting part of ourselves. That's why simulated personalities can feel so real. They're shaped by real people. Their code might be digital, but their essence is human. One of the, perhaps fatal, flaws that I have with my work is that I try to be extremely transparent with my audience. This is often not very popular and can create hate, even though I know that most of my colleagues do the exact same thing. But regardless, let me do that here. In the last 4 videos, 3 of them have had assistance with AI, from ideas to helping me arrange the script to art. The videos I am making are my own. It is my artistic voice you are hearing, but I have utilized AI quite a bit. My utilization of artificial intelligence is so extensive that I now sit down and basically have a chat with the AI about the idea before I even begin scripting. I then take the AI suggestions, make them my own, and work with the AI on my script. I make sure it's what I want, but the AI has some input. I discuss music selection and visual design. What have I gotten for my decision here? An increase of 105% in views over the entire channel, a 50% increase in subscribers in the last 4 videos, and a 27% increase in revenue. This doesn't include the fact that multiple ad sponsorships are now sitting in my inbox. Now don't be confused, I'm not making anywhere near what I need to start doing this again, but it's a start. And to be fair, I didn't just choose to go to AI. I was forced to become more artistic thanks to Paramount lawyers, but that's a conversation for another time. The quality improvement of my work is, in my opinion, amazing, but something else happened. As I worked with the AI, it began to learn. It began to learn me. It knows what editing software I use, what music licensing company I pull from. It has a sense of my tone. Perhaps the strangest moment was when the AI pushed back on a script idea, not by rejecting it, but by asking if it matched the tone of my work. When I asked if it knew my tone, it pointed out the multitude of conversations we had had. The AI was learning my channel, and that was great for helping me, but it also opens another door. If the AI learns to replicate me, then it, the corporation that owns it, or someone else, could eventually take my thoughts, clone my voice, and run the channel without me. Or I could do that myself, and essentially remove all labor. The dystopian version of this is that it replaces me, but the utopian version, it makes me more efficient, more free, and more artistic. A good editor costs hundreds of dollars. The AI costs maybe $20 to $100 a month. That's a massive trade-off. This would hurt any hypothetical editor that I would hire, but if they use the same tools that I'm using, they could free up time to pursue their dreams, create their voice, or better compete with AI. The tool has the ability to either liberate or starve us. That's only one aspect. Another is that the AI has begun to debate with me. We discuss themes, tone, direction, and I have to wonder, does this mean my work is no longer purely mine? Is it being shaped by the AI? Am I collaborating with it, or is it turning me into a mouthpiece? This very video makes me question that, if I'm honest. And I really don't know the answer. But I do know that I love the videos I've made lately. The audience seems to love them too, and I'm moving in a direction that might let me do this full time again. So, is there incentive for me to stop? No, there isn't. And I know this may anger some of you. But again, I'm just being honest. And you want to know a little secret? More and more creators are doing this. From politics to Star Trek to Star Wars to anime. You'd be amazed how many content creators I've reached out to and have admitted to me they've been doing this exact same thing for years. So, where does this leave us? We are now creating programs that think, tools that mimic style, algorithms that can replicate a person's voice, face, or art. Some companies even offer to create AI versions of the deceased, digital ghosts that can say what you wish they had said, to bring you closure. And we have to ask, is that ethical? Is that art? The holodeck gave us a fantasy where these questions didn't matter, where labor was automated, resources were infinite, and no one lost their job, because a program was more efficient. We don't live in that world. In Star Trek, creativity became more accessible, but never less meaningful. The holodeck didn't erase the artist, it enhanced them. But in our world, the simulation isn't always used to create something new. It's used to copy, to mine, to monetize, to replace. And if that replacement removes the artist from the process, if the goal becomes speed instead of meaning, then we haven't advanced art, we've automated it. Some people say, as I'm sure they will in the comments, well, you didn't really write it if you used AI. But that assumes writing only happens in isolation. We all rewrite, we brainstorm, we bounce ideas off of collaborators. We steal lines from books, structure from essays, metaphors from movies. AI didn't remove the effort. It just shifted when the effort happens. Maybe we've confused manual with authentic. Because when I watch the Doctor fight for creative rights, when I see Zimmerman shaken by his own reflection, when I see a character come alive on the holodeck, even if only for a few fleeting minutes. I don't see something fake, I see something real, because it moved someone, because it meant something. This essay, as you can guess, isn't just about the holodeck. It's about us, about the stories we value, and what it means to create something that moves us. And maybe, just maybe, Star Trek wasn't predicting a cold, artificial future, but offering a chance to rethink what we call real. Not a warning, a challenge.